In the 1990s, the ultimate American dream sat gleaming in driveways across the country. A family SUV promising freedom, safety, and adventure for millions. But behind glossy ads and soaring sales, something was going terribly wrong. Because at highway speeds, those same SUVs, trusted bestsellers, began losing control and rolling over, with underinflated tires shredding beneath them. 238 lives lost, families torn apart, and a century-old partnership shattered. How did America's favorite vehicle become a nationwide tragedy? Across suburban cul-de-sacs and open highways, the Ford Explorer became the family car of the 1990s. It wasn't just a vehicle, it was a promise. Ford's ads showed smiling kids, golden retrievers, and parents loading up for cross-country adventures. The Explorer towered above sedans and minivans, selling the idea that bigger meant safer, and that every driveway could hold a piece of the American frontier. By 1994, the Explorer had become America's best-selling SUV, moving over 400,000 units a year. Dealerships couldn't keep up with demand. For many, it was the first time a truck-based vehicle felt like a living room on wheels, comfortable, powerful, and ready for anything. But behind the scenes, the relationship between Ford and its longtime tire supplier, Firestone, was just as much a part of the story. The two companies had worked side by side since the days of the Model T. Their partnership was a point of pride, built on decades of handshake deals and mutual trust. Families trusted the Explorer for the same reason Ford trusted Firestone, a legacy of reliability stretching back nearly a century. As sport utility vehicles took over American roads, the Explorer became a symbol of freedom and safety. Parents felt reassured by its size and height, convinced it could shield their loved ones from harm. The emotional investment was real. This wasn't just about horsepower or towing capacity. It was about peace of mind. Yet beneath the surface, the very things that made the Explorer so appealing were quietly setting the stage for disaster. Ford's own engineers saw the warning signs before the first Explorer ever hit the road. Internal memos from 1987 and 1989 flagged a basic problem. The new SUV was too tall and too narrow. Its center of gravity sat nearly a foot higher than most cars, while the track width, the distance between the left and right wheels, remained as slim as a compact pickup's. Stability calculations showed a static stability factor well below federal safety benchmarks. In plain terms, the Explorer was easier to tip over than almost anything else on the road. Instead of spending millions to widen the track or lower the suspension, managers settled on a cheaper fix. They ordered the tires to be run at just 26 pounds per square inch, far lower than the 35 pounds per square inch stamped on the Firestone sidewalls. The logic was simple. Softer, underinflated tires would make the ride cushier and help the Explorer pass the industry's basic rollover tests by increasing understeer. But this shortcut came at a hidden cost. At 26 pounds per square inch, the tires flexed more, built up excess heat, and lost about 1/3 of their load-carrying strength. In hot climates or at highway speeds, that heat could spike by 40 to 60 degrees, weakening the tire from the inside out. A December 1989 memo spelled it out. The Explorer could only pass the rollover test with the tires set to 26 pounds per square inch. Ford's service manuals repeated the directive, and every new Explorer rolled out of the factory with that number on the door sticker. The decision locked in a dangerous compromise, one that would haunt families and executives alike as the failures began to surface. One moment, a family is cruising down the interstate with the windows down and music playing. The next, everything is chaos. When the tread peeled off a Firestone tire on a Ford Explorer at highway speed, the SUV didn't just wobble, it snapped sideways, then flipped, sometimes rolling end over end. In seconds, seatbelts tore, windows shattered, and passengers were thrown against steel and glass. Emergency crews found scenes that looked more like tornado wreckage than car accidents, crushed roofs, shattered windshields, and children's toys scattered among twisted metal. Across the United States, at least 238 people died in these rollovers. More than 500 others suffered injuries that would change their lives forever: spinal fractures, brain trauma, and amputations. The numbers alone are staggering, but the heartbreak sits in the details. In Texas, a summer afternoon in 1999 turned into a nightmare for one family when their Explorer's right front tire failed on a stretch of hot asphalt. The vehicle rolled 3 times, pinning the father under the roof and leaving him with a broken pelvis and a traumatic brain injury. He would never walk unassisted again. His children, bruised and bloodied, crawled through broken glass to flag down help. Their story echoed through hospital corridors and later in testimony before Congress. Clusters of these crashes appeared in the Southwest, where high temperatures pushed underinflated tires past their limits. But the devastation was not limited to one region. From Arizona to Florida, from rural highways to suburban streets, the pattern repeated: a sudden pop, a loss of control, a family forever changed. Each crash left behind not just wreckage, but questions. How could a vehicle sold as the safest choice become a death trap at 65 miles per hour? And how many more families would pay the price before anyone took responsibility? Inside Firestone's claims department, the numbers told a story no executive wanted to read aloud. By the turn of the millennium, 193 personal injury claims had stacked up against the company, alongside more than 2,200 property damage reports, all linked to tire failures on Ford Explorers. In just 1 year, from 1998 to 1999, the volume of claims spiked by 194%. Warranty logs flagged sudden tread separations and catastrophic blowouts at a rate that could not be brushed off as coincidence or driver error. Dealers from Arizona to Saudi Arabia sent letters pleading for answers, describing the same pattern. Explorers rolling over after a tire peeled apart at highway speed. In Venezuela, a cluster of fatal crashes left 46 people dead, prompting local outrage and calls for a nationwide tire replacement. Firestone's own internal memos admitted the ATX-2 tire was never engineered to withstand desert heat. Yet instead of alerting U.S. regulators, executives quietly authorized overseas tire swaps, replacing defective stock in the Middle East and South America, while keeping American families in the dark. Behind closed doors, settlement agreements silenced victims and dealers alike. Gag orders buried the details, barring anyone from speaking about the failures or even hinting at the cause. Confidentiality clauses became standard, ensuring that every new claim added to the pile would never see daylight. As the evidence mounted, so did the cost of silence. The truth was locked away in databases and legal files, waiting for the moment when it could no longer be contained. A local TV station in Houston changed everything. In February 2000, KHOU aired an investigative report showing families whose Explorers had flipped after a tire suddenly failed. The broadcast struck a nerve. Within weeks, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's Office of Defects Investigation began reviewing a surge of complaints. By May, the case had a file number and a growing stack of crash reports, 90 complaints, and 4 deaths officially on record. The pressure built fast. In August, Firestone announced a recall of 6.5 million ATX and Wilderness tires, the largest in U.S. history at that point. Ford scrambled to reassure drivers, and government regulators found themselves at the center of a storm. Headlines multiplied, and the story spilled onto every nightly newscast. The problem was no longer buried in legal files or whispered between dealers. Now, the crisis belonged to the public, and the people demanded answers. The showdown came in September 2000 under the glare of congressional spotlights and live television. Ford CEO Jacques Nasser and Firestone CEO John Lamp faced lawmakers and cameras. each refusing to shoulder the blame. Nasser insisted the tire is the root cause, while Lumpy fired back, the Explorer's design is the problem. Neither admitted what their own internal memos had already shown. Both companies had gambled with safety. The partnership that began with the Model T collapsed in public view. Within a year, Ford cut ties with Firestone, ending nearly a century of business. The fallout rippled through factories and communities. Firestone's Decatur plant shut down, leaving 1,500 workers without jobs. Ford spent $2 billion replacing 13 million tires to keep its customers from walking away. Outrage fueled new laws. Congress passed the Tread Act in 2000, forcing automakers to report safety defects in real time and giving regulators new power to protect the public. The era of silent settlements and closed-door deals was over, but the cost, measured in lost lives, broken trust, and shattered livelihoods, could not be recalled. For every promise of safety, 238 deaths and 500 injuries stand as the cost. Today, SUVs dominate American roads, bigger and heavier, often marketed as safer than ever. But corporate shortcuts still hide behind glossy ads. Accountability is not history, it is a living question. What risks are we driving home tonight?